Hello class, it's Monday afternoon, right before the start of week 4 of our class, and thus it is time for another fascinating and intellectually stimulating video from Faye. Good work last week. People did really great, thoughtful work in the forums. Long, well-researched, good responses to one another. I have a little more to say about that further on, but overall the quality of work this week, really good. Also, assignment 2 was way better than it usually is in these classes. Some of that might be because there's that great tutorial now on how to do that assignment, and perhaps it's a little easier than it used to be. But overall, I think that everybody that turned it in got a very good score on that project. So, congratulations, that's great. Okay. It's Monday. You're probably seeing this on Tuesday. Hopefully you turned in your rough draft before midnight. If you didn't, remember you still have 48 hours to get it turned in and still get half credit, which is at least better than no credit at all. Also, if you haven't yet looked, you should have your assignment 2 returned to you. I do have a little bit of advice for both your rough draft and your final draft as we move forward. Every class I have someone who turns in an assignment, often several someones, who turned in an assignment and didn't push the handy check assignment status button. When you push that, you'll see whether your assignment actually got uploaded or not. You can look at the actual physical assignment there up on the internet, make sure it's there. That'll save you a lot of grief down the road if you end up inadvertently getting a 0 and then are upset because you didn't get graded on the assignment you think you submitted. If it didn't get all the way uploaded in the process, there's no way for me to know that. So there's that. Also, just in case you're seeing this on Monday, before Tuesday, and you haven't yet submitted your rough draft, I do want to remind you that it's super helpful not only to push the button to make sure that it's been submitted correctly, but to run it through Turnitin before you submit it to me. Remember, both your rough draft and your final draft get automatically submitted through Turnitin before they come to me. So if there are places in it that you have accidentally plagiarized, if you run it through Turnitin yourself, then you're going to be able to rewrite those sections and make them not be plagiarized before you get it to me, which means you'll get a better grade. So in your interest, I don't see that report when you run it yourself. I see the one after you have officially uploaded your paper, and I see that for everybody. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, I have a little comment about our discussion forums, and that is sometimes you get an entry in which it is tempting to write 1 or 2 sentences about a myriad of things. For instance, if you were writing about supernumerary genders in the last class that we did, in the last discussions we did, you might be tempted to write a little bit about Two-Spirits and a little bit about Hejira and a little bit about something else you read about on the internet. And that's not going to be as strong as a discussion forum post in which you pick one example and go into more substantive detail about it. Make sure that you clearly describe what you read, how you understand it, what you think about it, maybe back it up with some strategic quote from the text, 1, maybe 2, or from another outside source. Go into detail on that 1, make 1 clear argument. That's going to be a stronger response than, so I read this, and I read this, and I read this, and I read this, and I read this. Okay. Let's see, your peer responses as well overall have been very good, but I want to remind you one more time that it's important that they be substantial. It's really not enough to say, that thing you wrote, that was great, that's awesome, good job. You really want to say, that thing you wrote, it made me think about something I read in the text and I don't understand it the same way. I have this question that maybe you could answer. Or, look, I found this alternative source that says something that disagrees with what you said. What do you think about that? So, think of it as a conversation. If you were talking with your friend about anything at all and they told you something and your response to it was, that's great. Like if you sit down to dinner with your husband or wife and they say to you, this really hard thing happened at work, and you say, oh, that's terrible. That's the end of the conversation, right? But if they say this really terrible thing happened at work and you say, oh my goodness, what happened? Tell me more about that. You're going to have more of a back and forth, and that's what we want in class. Great. I do want to tell you that starting this week, starting with week 4, I do change the way slightly that I grade your discussion forums. Instead of, as it is, I've been giving you a fair amount of detail on how to make your forums stronger. It is my experience that the comments that I give folks tend to be substantially the same over time. And so if you're likely to be the person who reads those comments, and I really hope that you are, by the time you get to week 4, you're already doing the thing that I would ask you to do different. If you're the person who is not going to read those comments, and you should because it'll make your grade stronger, then you're probably going to continue to not read them. So starting with this week, I will be pasting in the rubric, but probably not giving the same level of detailed comments back, which is not to say that you can't have them. I'm really happy to give them to you. So if you see a rubric, it doesn't make sense to you, you don't understand where maybe you went awry if you didn't get a great grade, please send me an email. I'm happy to give you more detailed comments back. So we'll try that for the last 2 weeks and see how it goes. Let's see. About the content of last week's class, I do want to remind you as you're writing that there is a difference between a rite of passage and like a family transition. Anthropology or family tradition. Anthropology defines a rite of passage in some very specific ways. It's something, a ritual that changes your standing in the community, your status in the community from being one kind of thing to another kind of thing. Like for instance, for a lot of people, either puberty, a lot of cultures rather, either puberty rituals or the marriage ritual are a thing that change you from being a child in the eyes of your community to being an adult in the eyes of your community. And with that goes specific rights and responsibilities. So if you have a family tradition that is like, in my family, every boy when they're 12 gets a gun and goes out hunting with my dad, that would be a tradition and not necessarily a rite of passage because it's not going to change you in the eyes of the larger community. I hope that is more clear. Also, every time I've taught this class, and I really think it's a problem with the textbook, every time I've taught this class, there's been a few students who have read a particular quote in the text and grabbed onto it in their discussion of supernumerary genders. It's Hobel's quote about, I'm going to paraphrase, but basically he's saying that Native American people who were born male into Native Plains Indian communities that like weren't very brave and didn't know how to hunt and would rather put on a dress and stay home with the kids, that's why they became two-spirits, right? A couple of folks in our forums this week quoted that again and said that's why there's, supernumerary genders, because it's, for wussy guys who couldn't figure out how to be men. I totally see how you get there, but that statement actually goes on to say that, starts with, that was an erroneous approach, so wrong, and goes on to say that was actually a colonial gender construct, right? So it was like early anthropologists went to these different places, looked at Plains Indians and how they did gender, and thought of it in their own terms, right? So like, if I had seen my fellow, European anthropologist walking around in a dress, I would think that there was something wrong with him and that he was just a really wussy guy and maybe he wasn't brave enough to hunt, right? As opposed to trying to have a culturally relative approach and look at it from the point of view of the actual folks who are living that. In which case it's a question of extreme discomfort with the gender roles they were given and some space made in the community for a different definition of gender. Great. Let's see. Oh, next week we go on to talk about religion. I always have very religious people in this class, and that's great. This gives you an opportunity to bring some of your own experience into the class. But I want to remind you that as we talk about religion, we're talking about how anthropology sees religion in a cross-cultural point of view. Our job is not necessarily to proselytize for our own religious faith. Our job here is not exactly conversion, but understanding, right? So we're going to open up and broaden our minds to see the world and the role that religion plays in the broader world. And we're going to try to apply that point of view to our discussion of religion. So, I'm not saying don't bring in your own personal experiences, please do. But it would be more helpful as we move forward to remember in this discussion that we are looking at religion anthropologically. Okay, so it'd be really great if you all keep your anthropologist hat on while we're working on that. It's week 4, so you don't have an assignment this week. Exciting, right? Gives you some extra time to work on your final draft, which I will remind you again is a full 25% of your grade. You're getting your rough drafts back this week. Hopefully you'll have them by Thursday or Friday. It'd be really great if you took this extra time and spent it on reading the detailed comments that I make on your rough draft. I do look and compare your final draft to your rough draft, and if I made suggestions in your rough draft and you took them in the final draft, that is going to increase your grade. Also, as you're getting those rough drafts back, remember, it is not too late to ask for help. You can ask for help from me. I don't understand this thing that you wrote. Where did I go wrong? Please redirect me or help me find another source. There's all that great live help from the library. You can actually send, not the library, the Writing Center. You can actually send your entire paper using these handy little links over here, your entire paper to the Writing Center. Ask them to read through it and give you comments back, and they will do it, but they need a couple of days to do that. So if you're going to do it, you probably want to do it as soon as you get your rough draft back. And then I have one last final reminder. Even though I belabored this point in all of my little videos and in my faculty expectations, every single time I've taught this class, I have students who have substantially plagiarized their papers from the internet. And they've gotten caught every time. Caught and failed. I really don't want that to happen to you. Don't be that guy. Run your paper through Turnitin. And remember, if you're taking most of what somebody said, even if it's not word per word, you still have to cite that information. Great. Okay, I hope that's helpful and that you have a really great week 4. I'm looking forward to reading all the great things you have to say. I'm really looking forward to your rough drafts. And I will see you again here in my office in another week and in the forums right away. Bye now.